It's okay to change your mind. I don't know if anyone's ever told you that. And that's what I'd love to cover in this episode of what I'm going to call the Daily Business Chat. You let me know if this adds value to you. The reason why I'm doing this is because inside one of our big coaching programs that we're actually shutting down because our energy is going in a different direction, especially with, I'll share more later. But one of the things that we've done over the past several years is we've done a daily mindset podcast inside of that coaching program, which people were investing a lot of money for. And in those episodes, we were able to work on the little things that no one ever addresses when you're shifting directions, when you're deciding to start your own business and more. And that's what I want to start doing for you here on this channel. If you want to if you want to learn more about how to uncover gifts and skills you already have, if you want to start a business, if you want to grow a business, I'm going to be sharing from my journey. I've been in this game since 2017. Also had a previous career as a doctor of physical therapy. I'll dive into that further, but I just want to add as much value in snippets every single weekday as much as possible, and maybe some weekends. You never know. My name is Joseph Gugi. I am the co-owner of REVINU.ai. I am an author. I got a book here, Unlock Your Hidden Income. Feel free to find it on Amazon or wherever. I am also a business coach, been in entrepreneurship for a while, went to school to actually become a doctor of physical therapy, made a massive pivot. It was terrifying because I thought I'd disappoint everybody, because you're told that the career that you choose is the one that you should stay in forever. And I'm sure I'll cover that later, but in this particular episode, I want to start with talking about changing your mind, right? I think a lot of us just, and maybe I'll hit that pivot as well in this episode, but it's okay to change your mind, right? I think a lot of times we're afraid of a change, right? And if that change is career, and that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about, right? Especially because I help people pivot from their 9-to-5 to a business, not just any business, but an aligned business, which I'm sure we'll address in future episodes as well. But it's okay to change your mind. And I did this as an episode for our clients not too long ago, and it really resonated with them. And the biggest reason for that is because a lot of us are perfectionists. Let me know real quick below. Do you see yourself as a perfectionist? You're waiting for things to be just right before you can take the next step. Wouldn't you agree? And I've seen that with business, because when you start a business, especially when it means a lot to you, you're solving a problem that you're very capable of solving, but now you need to put yourself out there. Most of us panic. Most of us wait. I actually remember, this is back in 2017. So I was in my last year of physical therapy school. This was the year that we hired our first business coach. I was just frustrated. I was frustrated because I realized how much the debt to income ratio was just mismatched. I also found out that the reasons why I went into that career, I'll hit that later, but it was based on a decision I made when I was 15. And when I really started analyzing why I made the decision, I realized that I hadn't truly spent time trying to figure out if it was really what brought me to life or not, if it was really what resonated with me. And anyway, I'll hit that later. But I remember having this peer who was also starting to work with the same business coach. And when we first started, we figured out what our gifts and skills were. We figured out what problem we were going to solve with gifts and skills we already had. And we launched it. Our first business was called Pre-PT Grind. You can still find it. It still exists. That's done very well over the years. But I remember this friend of mine who said, yeah, I can't start yet, because when you start a business, you got to start telling people about it. You have to have conversations about it, right? Especially when you're excited to share what you're working on. And I remember him saying, yeah, I'm waiting for the right camera. And I was like, okay, so which camera is that? And he showed me on his laptop this camera that he was eyeing. And I was like, cool, like, when did you order it? He's like, no, I'm waiting for the right time to order it. And I was like, interesting. And I was like, okay, so how long will that take? He's like, I'm not sure. I'm trying to save up some money and figure out different things to do. And I was like, so you're waiting for the camera. Don't you have an iPhone? Because for us, like the first several years of us creating content or putting ourselves out there, it was this, like on a phone, and it was like an older version of this, right? And so like literally, like when I look at the original videos we had, it was like super grainy and all that, but it worked. It got us clients, right? And so I was like, but don't you have a phone? He's like, yeah, but I wanted to feel like it has good quality. I wanted to, and I was like, interesting, okay. And I kept asking him about it for several months, and it just never changed. He was always waiting for the right moment. And long story short, as I film this, we are in August of 2025, and this was now January and February of 2017. Until this date, I don't believe he ever started. He was worried. It was fear. It was just fear. He was afraid. He was afraid that maybe things would go wrong, maybe it wouldn't work out, maybe he'd be embarrassed. I don't know, whatever the case was, but he was a perfectionist. And another reason, though, that I've realized people are nervous about putting themselves out there is because we have this fear in our head that if I tell people what my thoughts are now, then what happens if I change my mind later? Like, well, what happens if down the line I see the world differently? And my answer to that is that's going to happen. That's literally what learning looks like. Think back to something right now that maybe 5 years ago you saw differently. Like, you 5 years ago could have been like, yeah, this is exactly how I see it. This is exactly how it is. And now, after living life, your perspective changes. And I think a lot of us forget that we're human beings. I think we forget that we're supposed to shift and evolve. And one of the things that I shared with our clients, and I didn't make this up. I actually learned this from Matt Gottesman. So he has another podcast that I was listening to, and he brought this concept up, and it was like, there it is. And what he said is, he said, when you're communicating, just tell people, these are my thoughts, and they may change. He's just make it clear, like, these are my current reflections. These are my current thoughts. Even with these episodes, these are my current thoughts. I'm sure that a few years from now, when someone listens to this, it might, who knows, like, my perspective might be a little different because life changes it, experience changes it. And that's okay. I feel like it's important to consider the idea that when you share from where you're at in life now, there's always someone that connects with it. That's what sharing is about, by the way. That's why I'm even doing this. It's to connect. It's to communicate with you about something that may truly matter to you, something that is relevant to your life at this time. And if you have been sitting on the edge, if you know that there's a decision you've been wanting to make, maybe it's starting a new project, maybe it's launching your business, maybe whatever the case is, like whatever you have been on the fence about because you're afraid that it's not perfect yet, or because you're afraid that your perspective may change and you're waiting for everything to be dialed in. You're waiting for your ducks to be in a row. Is that the terminology? I don't even know. But like, you're waiting for the perfect time. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all. Start now. Start now. Don't be like my friend who waited all these years and probably just gave up on business entirely, when business is one of the coolest things ever. We've had quite a few, right? And the most beautiful thing is, and I'll talk about this in a future episode, is that when it comes down to even launching a business, because that's a lot of what I'll share, it's not just launching any business. It's not building any business. It's starting and building an aligned business, which means that it's already coming from who you are, meaning that you're taking gifts, skills, lived experience that you currently have, and you're matching it to problems that exist right now in this moment, and you're allowing the people that have that problem to get help from you, and they're willing to pay for it. And when you're doing that, you're going to be sharing from who you already are right now. Like, you're going to be sharing your current thoughts, your current observations, and that's going to help them. It's so interesting. My opinions have changed over the years, but the thoughts and opinions I had in 2017 still helped. Our clients still succeeded. It's just that as I've evolved, some of my perspectives have also evolved as well, which is why some of my businesses have also evolved as well. But that's good. That's good. And I'll end with this. I think part of it is how we see careers that has kept us stuck. So think back to when you were a kid, right? And when you were a kid, you, especially in grade school, right? Notice how much change happened between first grade and college, right? So first grade to second grade, big leap. Second grade to third grade, big leap. Let's jump a few years ahead. 8th grade to high school. I remember first day of high school, I was terrified out of my mind because I'm with the big kids now, right? The senior year of high school to college, right? So if you went to college, like, that's a big leap. Whoa, this is a very different, like, process. It's very different. And so what ends up happening is we always have these periods of change and growth and evolving. And then we finish our degrees, and then we start our job, our career. And now we're expected to not change anymore. Maybe in your career that you were told about, or whatever the case may be, maybe there's some trainings that maybe help you get a little better or whatnot. But most careers, people just stay stuck, right? So like for me, right? And this is not in any way to make any career look bad. It's just allowing you to just think differently. And right now, these are my thoughts. They may change. And so for me, when I was 15 years old, that's when I decided to be a physical therapist. And it's so interesting because when I was growing up, I thought that the careers I was going to choose from, and I'm an immigrant, so I think I've realized a lot of immigrants have the same list. You got doctor, like a physician, you got a lawyer, you got an engineer, right? Those like the big three. And I remember this is in high school. I believe I was 15. I'm going back in my mind to it. I was 15 years old. And it was like a career day. So they brought in different professionals who graduated from our high school. They would come talk about their career for about 45 minutes. We'd be able to ask questions. And the idea was to give us maybe an insight into a future potential path we wanted for our lives. And I remember looking and seeing that 2 of my big 3 were there, right? So I remember seeing the physician there, and I remember seeing the lawyer there. And I was like, ooh, okay, I'm just going to sign up for both because we were allowed to sign up for 2. You following? Okay. So I remember going and seeing the list and realizing that whoa, one of them was already filled up. I can't remember which one it was. I can't remember if it was the lawyer that was filled up or the physician. No, I can't actually now in real time because I did sit in for the lawyer. So the physician was filled up, right? So I signed up for the lawyer. The physician was filled up. And I remember thinking, I need a second one. So I did what any good 15-year-old high schooler would do. I looked at the lists and I said, which one has most of my friends? And so I looked and I was like, okay, cool. So the one that had most of my friends happened to be a physical therapist. Now, did I care for physical therapy at the time? No, I just wanted to be somewhere where for 45 minutes I could hang out with my friends. We could goof off at the back of the room and call it a day, right? I remember walking into that room and thinking, whoa, she gets paid to do this? So the person that was presenting, who ended up actually becoming one of my professors later on, it's such an interesting story, but she had like Bosu balls and like all these different things. I was like, whoa, this looks like fun, right? For me, everything I'd ever thought about when I thought of a career, like a dream career, was like sitting at a desk, a lot of paperwork, boring meetings. Think about how a kid thinks about work, right? And this was the first time I was like, this is a career that looks like fun. Remember, I'm 15. So as a 15-year-old, I'm like, I want a career that looks like fun. And then I thought to myself, I also don't want a lot of paperwork, which I learned later. PTs still have a lot of paperwork. But anyway, so I was like, I don't want a lot of paperwork. So this seems like a job that looks fun. And I can't have that much paperwork, right? And so that's why I'm going to lean in on this career. And it's funny, I don't know if I've ever shared publicly, those were my true initial thoughts when I decided to become a PT. And I'm pretty stubborn. So I committed to it. I started telling people, I'm like, yep, I'm going to be a physical therapist. In fact, I used to tell them I'm going to be a doctor of physical therapy because that's what it is. It's a doctorate. And I figured that would get people off my case so that they wouldn't, because people want you to excel. So what do you tell them? I'm going to be a doctor of physical therapy. Oh, wow. Sounds like you're going for big things. And so I think the approval from other people and that decision, I wanted it to be fun, very little paperwork, was my reasoning for working hard, eventually getting accepted into PT school. And then I remember when I was almost done with PT school, this is my second to last year, I started spiraling. I think that was the year that I found out about the debt to income ratio. That was also the year I started questioning why I even went down that path. I remember sharing this with my girlfriend at the time, my now wife. I said, I remember I was like in tears, and I'm not even a crier. I was like, I think I stole someone's seat. And I was trying to explain what I felt in that moment, and I couldn't find the words, but that's all I could come out with. I think I stole someone's seat. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be in this program right now. I feel like there's someone else that may have wanted this and may have aligned with it more than even me. And I don't know, I had this very strong feeling, and it led to a very deep spiral. It led to this moment of feeling like I was in a box, caged in, and I couldn't break myself out. I couldn't break free. And it was tough. It was tough. I got through that period because of business. There was a few months of being in this slump where, I don't know, it's just this conflict. It's feeling, man, I just locked myself into a career that I'm supposed to stay in until I'm in my 70s. And it's not normal to pivot. It's not normal to change your mind. You're like every other person I've ever seen has stayed in the same career, right? And it was like, man, like did I just destroy my life? Did I just put myself in a box? And I remember the way out for me was when several months later, a friend of mine introduced me to his business coach, who ended up becoming my business coach. That friend and I ended up starting our first business together, and the rest is history. That's when I was like, whoa, like number one, I loved business. I loved the ability to build and create something that broke the rules of income and gave us freedom. The reason why I can work from home today is because of that. But the other thing too that I realized is entrepreneurship gave me the freedom to change. Not just once, but I've evolved. As my perspectives have changed, my businesses have also changed, right? I didn't start out helping people start businesses, right? That was not even a skill set of mine at the time. But as we built our first one, people started asking us questions. And then I realized I actually love guiding people through helping them figure out their gifts and skills and talents and starting their own business. Cool. Can I do more of that? And it's just shifted and shifted. And then I got into quite a few years of heavy business coaching and consulting, which I've recently stepped away from that. I work with a few private clients who pay a premium. And then now we've pivoted towards taking what we've been helping people with and now using AI, right? So we built our own AI business builder that follows the exact process that we've used. It's exactly what it helps anyone who wants the change, who wants to start a business, who wants to start an aligned business. It helps them do it without a course, without a coach, but by asking them the right questions, pulling from them what their gifts and skills are, and guiding them along the way from idea to income. And if you want to check it out, it's REVINU.ai, REVINU.ai, and you can see if that's something you're curious about. But that's the change that has happened. And I feel like as I change, that will also pivot, right? My business gives me the space to keep pivoting, but it's because of what I said earlier. These are your opinions right now. These are your thoughts in the moment, and they might change. Change is a good thing. And being a perfectionist and always wanting things to be perfect and dialed in is just not how the world works. And so hopefully this gave you some freedom. And if this helped you, if this gave you a level of clarity, unlock, etc., then I'm glad. I really am. And please share this with someone else that you believe would value it. And we'll talk soon. Have a blessed one. See you on the next one. Bye.